I've been thinking about Wuthering Waves' main story. As we wait for the next story update, I got kinda silly and started playing through everything again. So, as we know, majority of people preferred 1.1 story and saw it as a massive improvement compared to its predecessor 1.0, which truly wasn't a hard one to beat, but in this video, I decided to list things that made 1.1 feel much better than 1.0 storytelling wise. Why do most of us love the story this time around when a lot of people actually really hated the first update? What made it so compelling? So, let's talk about it. By the way, welcome back to the channel. My name is Maze. Not really. And I'm gonna do some lore, story, and character analysis, commentary, as well as other silly stuff for Wuthering Waves or maybe more games in the future. If it isn't much of a bother, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you like the video, because every single one matters to the channel at this point. Okay, now that that's out of the way, I'm gonna just say that obviously this video includes spoilers for Wuthering Waves until 1.1, but I won't talk about the story quests or the companion stories since that's a different topic that I want to discuss next time. So, these are the things that 1.1 did better than 1.0. Firstly, the characters. Simply put, characters in 1.1 just felt much more compelling than the characters in 1.0. I'm not saying that every 1.0 character is not interesting. Of course, I will consider that 1.1 really benefited from everything that was established in 1.0, a privilege that the latter couldn't have had. Still, 1.1 also benefited from other things, such as having a small cast and allowing that small cast to shine, every single one of them. In 1.0, since it struggled with too much exposition and making us meet a chunk of characters at once, not all of them became as compelling as they could be had they been given more time to shine more. Meanwhile, in 1.1, we focus only on a few set of people or characters. So we had Jinxie, a bit of Cheng Li and Abby, and Jue. Even a new side character, Xin Yi, with a very small screen time, managed to shine despite that. I'd also argue that maybe part of the reason why the characters felt more compelling this time around was that it wasn't focused on Rover. In 1.0, a lot of things just focus on Rover, and since players self-insert and a lot of the story was still a mystery, the investment just did not quite hit the mark. In contrast, in 1.1, it basically is Jin's story, and we were just there as bystanders or spectators, as Joey had said. Even still, there was a payoff at the end that made it all seem worth it. The lore dump given to us, while hinted at before, still seemed shocking and exciting to hear straight up. Of course, I want to point out that 1.0 is so much longer than 1.1, and in my opinion, in 1.0, they truly could have done much more storytelling wise when it comes to building the characters we meet, introducing us to the concepts of the world, and making us actually care about every single concept of the story. But I digress because the next one that I want to talk about are the cutscenes. Now, the cutscenes for Act 6 were so good in 1.0, but I felt like on average, obviously, 1.1's cutscenes that just stepped it up so much. They included different angles, creative shots, very expressive characters, which we rarely see in games like these, characters that actually physically interact with each other even during the dialogue beats, that overall just made the scenes feel much more alive and immersive, not only in comparison to 1.0, but also to other gacha games in general. From Abyss scenes to meeting Chang Li, the boat scene, aka the most beautiful scene ever made in the history of all existence, I'm exaggerating, seeing Mount Firmament for the first time, Chang Li versus the Fraxidus, the scenes leading up to the Jue confrontation, and the boss fight itself are also well done and memorable. The only scenes I can remember from 1.0 that had that much impact were seeing Crownless for the first time, capturing Scar, meeting Jinxie, though I think a lot of people didn't like that scene, the Jian versus Geshu conversation, and the final boss fight. Now, you can say that that's just as much as 1.1, but again, 1.0 was much longer. It's literally 6 acts versus 1. It's just incomparable. 1.1 just did so much with the short amount of time it was given. But then again, maybe that's why 1.1 feels much better. It's compressed, concentrated, and coherent. This is something that I believe Wuthering Waves can use in their future stories. But on this topic, I want to talk about the environment, the location, and the music. Now, if you won't admit that Mount Firmament is simply just a gorgeous map, you're coping hard. Because it is. It's so beautiful that I want to cry because my potato phone, where I play the game, can't capture it. Anyway, it is beautiful and it is so small. Sure, it has layers, but it's still way too small compared to 1.1's map. Now, here's my issue with 1.1's map, aka why 1.1's map just felt better. With how long Acts 1 to 6 were, I wish the main story itself extended past several more areas and occupied more locations to make us feel more connected to these places. Sure, there were side quests and exploration quests for some of them, but let's be honest, with the skip button presence, even some lore players skip side quests. I mean, I do skip side quest dialogues, sue me. Another extension of the map or location problem would be the issue with Wuthering Waves' music. We spent so little time in these locations that we truly were not able to correlate or allow the music there to resonate with us or make us remember something. For example, every time I hear 1.1's theme, I would think of specific scenes we experienced in Mount Firmament. I would be able to picture certain scenes even in a vivid manner. This is not something that I can say about 1.0's music. There are some music around Wuthering Waves' world so far that are actually bangers in my opinion, but spending time there exploring will not really give these songs justice. The experience could have been much different and much better if we had a relevant story around these places that could make those songs feel special, hence sounding special as well. I really wish we could get more substantial exploration quests. I mean, Wuthering Waves has nothing to lose. Lore skippers can just skip while lore players can have our meals. The map is so big, and I'm assuming that since in my knowledge they aren't releasing a new map in 1.2, we would make the most out of some of these locations in 1.2, right? I wish we could do more. Only then can this world's world building truly come to life. We still don't know much about the cultures of these places, and we know that and those that we know are pretty much superficial, which I personally think is a shame. I guess what I'm trying to say is that 1.1 does this a bit better with Mount Firmament's lore and history, and I am actually holding my breath. I'm gonna give them time and trust that they will seize this opportunity in the future updates. The next one that I want to talk about are the dialogue and pacing. Now, some people will tell you that the pacing is much better in 1.1, but really it's not much of an improvement compared to 1.0. You just feel like that because it's concentrated. As I said, it's short. Anyway, it still has a lot of problems like the repetitive lines and stuff, and some other unnecessary scenes. I have a perfect example for this. So in 1.1, we had not one, but two cutscenes of Abby at Panho's restaurant. that, in my opinion, could have easily been just one and be paced better. I do think it's a waste of screen time to have such a long exposition at the beginning, especially if you're playing this act right after playing the one before, which I did on my account. The whiplash from fighting the dreamless and that enthusiastic narrator to this. So imagine if 1.1 started with Rover's dream of Mount Firmament that she talked about with Abby and Changli in canon. She snaps out of that dream as Baija, yes, I'm adding Baija, calls out her attention. At present, they are at Panwa's restaurant. Abby is eating. Yang Yang and Chisha are there to talk to Rover and to meet Abby. With this, several points could be showcased with a much shorter and not so boring cutscene. The points being Rover's vision or dream and concern, what Abby is and the theory of what echoes from other regions can do, Rover's state and connection with Abby, Rover and Abby's connection with each other, from Baija's findings, and what Mount Firmament is. I mean, it's it's not the best cutscene. I came up with it on the spot, but it does the job, right? It's shorter, much more straight to the point, and might not bore people. On this topic, I just want to say that do I think the repetitiveness is annoying? Yes, I do. Do I think it's criminal? No, absolutely not. After all, they have a skip button. But then again, for people like me who do love to follow the story, it can get annoying to have to go through the same established points over and over again later on. And if you're not following, I'm talking about like Jinzi having to fight the Sentinel being imprisoned. They repeated that like four times in the story. And I will not excuse these things just because a very attractive character is giving this exposition. Actually, I lied. I will excuse it. Chang Li can talk my ears off for hours, and I'd say, let Kuro cook. Anyways, I wanted to include this because I personally don't think that the dialogue and the pacing are much better in this patch, but my theory is that it just feels like that for two reasons. First, the story itself is shorter, and I mean that the main concern or the main story that they want to tell is short. Now, and number two, the characters giving us expositions are characters we care about, or at least characters we're intrigued about, which means, Junzi and Changli. I rest my case, really. For the next one, I wanted to talk about the gameplay. And I know I'm a lore creator and this is about storytelling, but walk with me. The thing is that I personally think, gameplay wise, I think 1.0 was better. At least 1.0's Act 6, okay? And I'm talking about the choreography of the gameplay or the quest. I'm not sure if I'm using the correct terminologies, but in 1.0, if you remember, they had us doing this grapple pulling thing to reach the dreamless, right? And the gameplay, while weird, like why are we pulling stones? It still felt really thrilling and exciting. Meanwhile, in 1.1, we had these long puzzles, and while they're easy, they can get quite annoying, especially the last one when all we wanted was to meet Joy already, but we still had to solve this damn puzzle. Again, the puzzles themselves are easy, but I personally think they could have implemented it in the gameplay differently. I'm not saying don't put puzzles, that's insane. I actually do love puzzles, but I mean like differently in a way that they do not kind of kill the hype for the story for us who do care about what's gonna happen next. The puzzles were fine at first, but it just became so repetitive later on. I'd accept these puzzles for explorations, but for something like to unlock the Jue meeting, it's kind of a bummer because it just felt so anticlimactic. Unlike in 1.0 when we were going and fighting bosses and we had these simple gameplay mechanics that managed to make us engage in both the game and the story. I don't know, maybe this is a personal opinion, but I saw some people complain about these puzzles as well because, the meta players just want to fight already and the lore players just want to know the lore already. But instead, we had to solve this long as puzzle. But maybe this is a skill issue on my part. So let me know what you think about this point. I'm not sure if this is a popular opinion. Okay, before I rumble more, let's get to the next point. Okay, the boss fight. A lot of people will disagree, I can already tell, but gameplay wise and design wise, I'm more of a Dreamless person myself. Not really a dragon person, I mean, I skipped both GN and Jinzi on my main, so if we're talking storytelling wise, which is my main concern, 1.1's boss fight is so much better. It just is. The stakes are as high. But because we care about Jinzi and what might happen to her and what we'll soon find out, the stakes felt a bit higher for us as players. The cutscenes did their part to build up the hype, like scenes like this power of friendship thing, and Jue asking us for permission, the domain looking gorgeous, and the fact that we only play as Jinsi. Also, the fact that this was a fated battle that had been hinted on since like Act 4 helped so much. Let's get into the conclusion part. So, 1.1 just felt better overall from the storytelling perspective. And for me, the storytelling kind of makes or breaks a game. With all that being said, I believe they're heading to a right direction, and I'm very excited to see what they're going to do next. Overall, I wanted to talk about this because I wanted to answer the question, how can Wuthering Waves improve their story further? And based on the comparisons I stated on this video, these are the things I came up with. Obviously, I'm not a gaming developer, so this is just from my own lens as a casual lore, character, and exploration enjoyer player. I am also a writer in real life, but um, I'm still working on that. Okay, so these are the things I came up with from everything we established in this video. Number one, give characters introductions time to breathe. Make us root for the characters and make the interactions as alive as possible. It doesn't matter what role they're playing or how big of a role they're playing. If you give us a reason to care about them, it will do the story so good. Don't make them all treat Rover the same way, as well as make the characters interact with each other more outside from Rover. Number two, keep it up with the creative cutscenes. I don't mean make them all over the top fan service, but like just be consistent with making the cutscenes as interesting as possible. These are actually so creative, and I wanted to give Kuro props for that. Number three, make sure that each part of the map feels relevant to the lore. It's a shame because these maps are gorgeous, and as I said, maybe there will be more quests in the future. Of course, I'm not saying there won't be, but yeah, I hope every area will feel special and important. Number four is pace it better. That's just it. Pace the story better. Less is more when it comes to dialogue and pacing. And given that the demographic is 16 plus, I don't believe over repetition or too much telling rather than showing is needed. Number five, give us precise and short gameplay mechanics if it's leading to a hype scene. I promise it will do wonders for both meta players and lore players. The former just want to fight things, and the latter just want to know what happens next. So, yeah. Number six, lastly, mix the two boss fights. I'm not kidding. Imagine a gameplay like the Dreamless boss fight mixed with a lore storytelling like the Jue boss fight. It will be so peak. I have not called this game peak yet, and maybe I would if they do this. So these are just my thoughts about this. I'm very excited to see what they have in store for us, especially for the Black Shores chapters. As mentioned earlier, I do think they are heading to the right direction, and I will be here loving it and criticizing it lovingly. Let me know what you think about this and about this video in general. What are your hopes about the future stories? How do you think can Wuthering Waves improve their story? Let me know about all of it. So if you made it until this point, I hope you never lose a 50-50 forever and ever. And let me know if you pulled for my girl, who you're pulling for, and see you in the next one. Thank you.